The retail sector in Australia represents a little under 20% of our total economy, and it also supports close to 1.5 million jobs. Our big retailers, it's pretty pleasant to see, back Australia. But most retailers are also big buyers of overseas goods that may be cheaper than the locally produced products. So how do the CEOs of our biggest retailers reconcile this? Katie Page is the Chief Executive of Harvey Norman, and this is why she is backing Australia.
Ross, you've known our company since '82. Jerry and I, from day one, have backed Australia-made. Over those years, if you go back to the '80s, most things that we sold were actually Australian-made. Over time, that's reduced, but we've always been in there where we can, supporting manufacturers to keep their factories here in Australia, employing people, and the benefits are huge. So, for example, as I stand here in my bedding shop at Auburn, where we started in '82, I talk to you maybe about the mattresses that are made in this country. We've got 3 companies, all family operated for generations, that have on-time manufacturing, the best quality that you could imagine of beds, and all these years later they're thriving, they're doing well, and that's the support that we give them and the franchisees of Harvey Norman give these companies.
And it's also important to recognise that our retailers, that there are great Australian owned and operated retailers that are here, and they're important for the survival, for the viability of our economy.
So, when you think about the different iterations of Harvey Norman, we started out with home and lifestyle in '82. We added tech to Harvey Norman in '89, '90. So we have always been and kept up with the best retailers in the world. Australians are great retailers. And so if you're making sure that you're supporting local, that you are showing Australian consumers that you're supporting communities and employment, but also it's so important that you have state-of-the-art, the best offering for your consumer, and I think Harvey Norman does that. We're quite unique, of course, anywhere, because we do home, lifestyle and tech under one roof. Around the world we are unique. But all of this is done from our head office in the western suburbs of Sydney. We have 320 stores, not all of them in Australia, but we're doing it from here. We're doing it from Australia.
And one of the other aspects of this is we often hear about the fact that people should try to buy Australian where it's competitive and where the product is comparable with goods from overseas. The question is whether that's harder for consumers these days, whether there's simply so much international product in Australia that it's very difficult to make Australian choices.
So, that's a really interesting thought, because Australian manufacturers make a quality product. If you're explaining to a consumer what goes into that product, they're actually willing to pay more for Australian made. And we've seen that time and time again. If you're trying to compete in that low-end part of the market, especially in furniture and bedding, that's difficult. But our consumers absolutely, if they're shown that this is Australian-made, will know that it's a bit more expensive because of that quality. And the other thing we talk about as well is that product from overseas is taking a long time to be shipped to this country. When you support Australian manufacturing and in the categories that we're in, that's quick to market compared to manufacturing, putting it on a ship, sending it across. So it's in fact more sustainable as well.
The other point also is it strikes me that there's a lot of Australian families and individuals, entrepreneurs, who are prepared to have a crack to create a business in Australia, to certainly try and make money for themselves, but the reality is to try and create goods here in Australia. And it's important that we get behind those people because of the knock-on effect, the bigger effect that they have on the economy.
I agree with you. And, since '82, Jerry and I have understood how important it is that you support local manufacturing where it makes sense, where it's a quality product that customers understand, but it really is involved. Jerry and I understand that we have to do the work with those manufacturers to be bringing products onto our floor that consumers want, need and are of quality. But it supports a whole community. It keeps the brains trust in this country. And I can tell you that as long as on your floors or in your marketing that you're showing the consumer if it's Australian made, once they know that that product is Australian made, they will look at it and ask questions, and they're willing to pay a bit more for it because they understand the quality piece.
So do you think, Katie, that there are any policies that Australia needs from government, from industry leaders, to try and encourage more Australian goods, more Australian manufacturers, more Australian innovation? Is there any more that can be done?
When we have meetings with government, with other business leaders, we always have that meeting in one of our stores, not in an office. And we go around our floor and we go through the product that's being made here or where it's coming from, so that people that are making decisions, the policy makers, actually understand at ground zero how all of this works. You'd be amazed at the number of people that don't know where the product comes from, what its provenance is. I just know and understand that once you get them onto, in our case, a Harvey Norman floor, and you get them talking to the salespeople, the customers, the franchisees, not just Jerry and I, it has a very deep effect on those people, how they go back and try and support some of those initiatives around Australia made that makes a difference to this country.
Katie Page, always great to chat to you, and many thanks for your time today.
Thank you.